Hello and welcome to the Protocol 4 podcast for this week. I'm Logan. I'm hosting this week just because I hosted last week and it didn't work out, which we'll explain that in a little bit. But with me today are Grant.
I'll explain it right now. Logan completely derided the conversation or derailed it. He started saying racist things, using his platform to spew hate speech, and we just had to shut that down. So,
Okay, and we also have Johnny here today.
Yeah.
Okay, so Grant's version of events is close to what happened, but not exactly. What happened was we recorded a full episode. It was a very good episode, if I do say so myself.
it was the greatest episode possible. In fact, many say the best podcast ever.
Yeah, we were all pretty well on our game. I hosted. I did okay. And we went through a few topics. And I think just because, Grant, I guess your computer was suffering because of the weather, the recording was all left up.
Yeah, it was. Unfortunately, I'm doing this from. It's about a 5-year-old laptop. Luckily, it was a pretty good laptop when we purchased it, so it handles most things. But stuff like this causes it to heat up. So, and that weekend was a particularly hot weekend in Washington, and my apartment does not have AC. So it was the heat from that combined with the heat it was giving off, and the noise of all the fans that I pretty much had to have on both myself and the computer while it was running. Otherwise, it would blue screen it, and the audio kept giving out. So it was not worth posting. You could not tell what you were saying. Johnny was completely inaudible. That's the whole other thing. But yeah.
Yeah, so that sucks. But another thing I should mention, obviously, before we get too far, is that our other co-host William is not here this week. I think he just has a pretty busy weekend this weekend. So I think he was in a Darkstalkers tournament. I guess is that going on today or was that just last night?
Yesterday.
Did you say he won?
No, well,
Okay.
I hear there were some high-level players there, so
yeah, very cool. Okay, so that's cool that he did that. I don't know if I wish we had a link to footage of that. I guess we didn't. Maybe we'll post that if we can.
There are high-level Darkstalkers players. That is the news for this week, guys. And have a good weekend and see you. No,
is that news? So we're gonna miss William today, but we're gonna get on without him for now, and hopefully we'll all be here next week. But we will have sort of a recap, a rediscussion of the topics from last week later on in this episode, especially because we do not have that many topics to talk about this week. I think Johnny was just saying before we started, it is sort of generally a slow news week, certainly for games because E3 is over, Comic-Con hasn't happened yet. Even the game release schedule has slowed down, and for movies as well. There's a weird amount of trailers that did come out in this past week, but there's just not that much new news to really sink our teeth into.
I mean, there's one interesting thing. It's not really much of a news story, but I thought it was really interesting is Atomic Blonde's getting good reviews. I thought for sure that movie was going to suck. So I'm very interested to see it, considering that it's getting good reviews. So that there's also Baby Driver, but that's Edgar Wright, so like everyone knows that was going to be good. So
so I'm seeing Baby Driver tomorrow. And there's also Sofia Coppola's new movie, The Beguiled, which is a remake of a Clint Eastwood movie. Well, a movie with Clint Eastwood in it is out, and that's supposed to be good as well. So it is kind of a good week for non-blockbuster movies, which is kind of cool. We only have a couple new topics to talk about this week. But we will definitely have something pretty big, I think, to talk about next week because Anime Expo is going on right now in Los Angeles. And in just a couple hours, there's going to be an FLCL panel. I think all of us on the podcast are big fans of the original show. And, we certainly are pretty interested to find out what's going to happen with the sequel that they're making, the 12-episode sequal. And
it's 12 episodes. Oh, my God.
Well,
and
it's double the length of the original show.
It's supposed to be like two separate things.
I suppose.
It two separate stories?
Well, I don't know if they're separate stories, but they're like they're breaking it down into 2 seasons. So presumably there's going to be some sort of like distinction between the two.
But we will probably find out more today. There may even be a trailer showing, going by the news that we have read. So we will definitely be talking about that next week. But for now, this week, we do have some anime-related news to talk about, which is that Netflix released a new trailer for their Death Note movie. And it's kind of hard to say
Fucking
what the
sucks.
reaction has been.
Fucking sucks. That's what
Yeah,
it is.
it seems to have had a largely negative reaction. Some people, I feel like maybe aren't. I feel like maybe there's not quite as much vitriol as there's been with some past anime adaptations. The whitewashing conversation is still there. But I mean, it seems to have sort of been overtaken by a conversation of this just doesn't really look or feel right to many people. I know one of the things that I heard that was strange was that there are a couple things about Light's character in the movie where he's shown to be bullied, which is odd because, in the original show, he's sort of just this guy who's actually very sort of an ideal person, ideal smart guy, handsome guy, and he sort of has that hubris, I guess, and that's part of his character. And he does it out of a sense of justice. He does what he does. He doesn't do it out of revenge, as far as I know. I have not finished the original Death Note. And there was another element to it, I believe, which was that there's another line in the trailer, and I guess it's not like it's just one line, but there was a line where I think he goes like, I'm the bad guy now," which sort of make it almost seem like he could be regretting his actions, which was also, from what I've read, not something Light ever really did
Definitely was not
in the original series. But yeah, you guys can talk about some of your thoughts on it. I will say, obviously, Ryuk looks good. They kind of tend to keep his appearance pretty low key, and Willem Dafoe seems to be doing a very good job with the voice. So I do like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, I like that they cast Willem Dafoe as Ryuk. That's like easily the only good part I'm seeing of the trailers. So
Ryuk looks and sounds good.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, that's good. But yeah, in terms of the bullying thing, that like making him be like, oh, now he's a nerd and he's striking back at all those mean people.
Nerd.
He's probably gonna be a nerd. He's gonna be like, I love video games.
Oh my
and
God.
Yeah, I think a funny Reddit comment that I read was that they were saying it seemed like the Death Note movie is turning Light into the kind of people that read Death Note in middle school.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. I mean, there was a YouTube comment I read where their reaction was, so this is what happens when you write Death Note in the Death Note. So, it's so yeah. But back to that specific point, making it where he's like bullied and stuff. Like the thing that was kind of like important to Light's character in the original series was that he specifically turned the way he did, even though nothing was really wrong with his life. So it's kind of supposed to be about like, oh, anyone can be like this.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily anyone, because Light was sort of more well off than most people. He's like very handsome and extremely intelligent, and his family was doing pretty well. So he himself didn't really have any problems. It was more like his outlook on the world.
Well, yeah, but it's like, because it's like it's that you're not like, you doing something evil like this isn't necessarily to like your station in life, I guess, is like a better way of putting it. Whereas now
he
it's
certainly didn't do it based on his own experiences. It's more what he saw happening to other people.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are kind of afraid that this movie is going to try to make Light look sympathetic.
Yeah, and that's like exactly not the point of Light. He was like not meant to really be sympathetic. Even though, didn't the author like say at one point, he's like, I'm not passing judgment.
Yeah, no, like the author was always like very vague about like his stance on the series. Just kind of like brush off questions like, oh, I'm not, people can do whatever. You have your own opinion.
Yeah, you can interpret my story. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you pretty clearly define what happens in the story, but you can interpret the story.
Yeah.
And then they're like, so what you're asking us is to interpret anything after the midpoint of the series to not be shit. And it's like, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
So yeah, let's talk about L. So L in the movie is played by Lakeith Stanfield, who's a pretty good up and coming actor. And I guess in the movie they gave him kind of this weird sort of edgy appearance. But then again, it's also not as if L's appearance in the original manga wasn't kind of edgy as well. Oh, hello. Um, and so I'm not going to pass judgment on L yet. In fact, I'm not passing judgment on much of the entire thing because as long as the movie is good, I probably won't care that much because I'm not too huge a fan of Death Note. Like I said, I haven't finished it. So yeah, I mean, I'm expecting a good performance from L, but I wouldn't be surprised if the character were not exactly the same as he was in the manga. I think we do see him in his sort of famous sitting pose.
Yeah, we do.
In the trailer, and if I recall, there's also a line that kind of shows that maybe he already knows that Light is Kira, which I guess some people were apprehensive about, but at the same time, in the original manga, doesn't L essentially know that Light is Kira, but it's more of just an informed guess?
Well, yeah, but that was the thing because I should say that I do sort of like L's character and performance in this. Like, it's obviously very different from the original, but like, you know, he seems to be doing a good job, so I don't really mind it. If this wasn't based on Death Note, I feel like I would like the character. You know, like like whatever's going on here seems cool. But the in terms of like the whole him knowing that Light is Kira, that's very strange because in the original series, like a big part of what was going on there was like they would kind of be like constantly trying to outwit each other and like outdo each other, and like each one like sort of suspected that the other one was, you know who they are.
Yeah,
well, I'm pretty sure Light knew L was L. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he knew
So
that.
he didn't suspect.
The point is that like they each kind of like had like a good idea of that, but they wouldn't like they couldn't reveal it to each other. You know, that was like part of the game where they kind of had to like one up each other, but like while being somewhat handicapped. You know, and
I thought L said to Light at one point directly that he thinks that he's Kira.
Well, he did,
Yeah.
but like it wasn't like accusatory. It was weird. It was more like an L quirk where he's like, oh, I think you're Kira, but there's a chance that you're not. So he's just kind of like being sort of like playful about it and like sort of threatening him, but not really. But then in the movie, he's like you're Kira, I'm gonna stop you. You know, like he's just like screaming at him like in the middle of a restaurant or something.
And then like a freaking Ferris wheel collapses and everyone dies for some reason.
Yeah, and that's the other thing that I'm having a problem with is like Light, when he killed people in the original series, like they were always like targeted people, and he wasn't by like causing some massive explosion that's gonna kill a bunch of other people, like a fucking Ferris wheel coming
But
down.
maybe everyone on that Ferris wheel was evil.
Yeah. I think in the trailer, I think isn't Light like on the Ferris wheel, like he's hanging on it. So I'm not really sure what that sequence is going to be like.
I don't know. It's probably like some weird like
It's a dream
mob thing where like there's a bunch of dudes like they're like, oh, Kira's on the Ferris wheel, we gotta blow it up. But
what a bunch of mob people are just like, he's on the Ferris wheel, so then they all get on it and they're all just like going around it, and they're like, this wasn't such a good idea, and then it explodes.
Yeah, that sounds like a cool move. But well, yeah, I mean, well, in terms of like these like wacky like kind of like bigger, more cinematic deaths, I should say that the anime did have a lot of that, even though like it wasn't really present in the manga. Like in the manga, most people just die from a heart attack, but they would die from like something sort of like minor or common. But then in the anime, like a bunch of weird shit would happen. Like freaking, he'd be like, he would write people's name in a death note, and they would just like start flying out of windows and stuff.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. But like at least like, but I'm assuming the implication once that happened was that they committed suicide, like they threw themselves out.
Yeah,
of
well, like, but it did like they threw themselves out with like more force than the human is capable of. Like they would literally like fly several feet and then jump out the window.
Like freaking yeah, I mean, but yeah, I don't like that about it. But and the other kind of point of why it's kind of important to me that L doesn't like pretty much know for certain that Light is Kira is because one of the whole reasons as to why like they didn't know in the original manga was because L and Light kind of had a friendship that built, and like that was the whole thing is L didn't really talk to people much, but he started to see Light as a friend, so it was kind of like that irony in it where that any like interaction Light has with L that's like friendly is a ruse, but like L doesn't know that for certain. And I think there was when he dies, isn't there like a like he said what? All right,
Spoilers, but
yeah, whatever.
yeah.
Like
Hopefully
sorry,
you have
yeah,
read the series.
like you
Very
like
very
like
famous.
yeah, it's a famous show. Sorry, it's a spoiler, but yeah, that happens. But I remember there was at one point where like L said something to Light where he's like, "I'm glad you're not Kira," or like, "I hope you're not Kira." Like it was like this moment where he was just kind of admitting that he looks at him as a friend and he really doesn't want to be right in his assumption that he's Kira. And like so when, he dies, the scene where, Light reveals that he's Kira by like having like his evil smile was kind of heartbreaking because, like L felt betrayed at the final moment where he died too. Whereas now it's just like he kills him probably and then he's like, "Oh, okay." And then he just dies.
It's like, well,
Like,
good.
yeah.
No, but it's kind of weird actually because like on a point about the original Death Note series, it kind of feels like the authors like sort of like hated L or something because like they really go out of their way to make him like as miserable as possible a lot of the time.
Doesn't like everyone hate him?
No, but well, I mean, he's really popular with like fans and stuff.
No, I mean like in universe, don't like all the characters hate him.
Well, I mean, I don't know if necessarily they hate him, but I suppose he wasn't like the most popular guy. Like, not only is he betrayed by Light, but like the authors specifically went out of their way to confirm that like if you die in the Death Note universe, like you don't go to like heaven or hell or whatever, you just like cease to exist. They're just like, no, there's like no happy ending here. You're just dead.
Well, I mean, isn't that probably what happens if you die in the real universe?
Yeah, but I mean, you don't need to mention that in the manga. Like, it's not even relevant. Yeah. But,
Well, he was trying to abate people's fears that L was rotting in hell.
all right.
He's like, "Don't worry, guys. He's not rotting in hell. He just
wasn't
doesn't
like
exist."
a very evil guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, another thing I should mention also is that although I do like L and Ryuk's performance, I should say that Light's actor does not seem very good. Like most of his lines were delivered like very flatly and like not, I don't know, they didn't sound good. So hopefully his actual performance is better, but based on the trailer, it doesn't seem like a good casting choice.
Yeah, and let me also just say, all the Redditors and everybody else who want the potato chip scene to be in the movie, don't get your hopes up. I would, I would bet a few dollars that it will not be in the movie. Just say that, and it's not, there's nothing saying one way or the other. I'm just telling you, probably not going to be in there.
Yeah, I mean, it probably won't. It's very strange though because like stuff by the company who did the anime, they also did Attack on Titan. And like that got enormously popular, largely due to similar directing choices where things are like more outrageous and wacky. So it's like you think that they might want to actually do some of that instead of trying to like make it this kind of low key. Well, except that's the thing is like it's low key in I guess conversations, but then it's like stupid Hollywood blockbuster crap. And
Yeah,
like
well,
the action sequences.
I mean, the thing about that is that there's like kind of like a lack of awareness that I mentioned before, where like it's very clear that the people who are making this like I wouldn't mind like a Death Note adaptation where they change the setting or the characters or whatever. I feel like Death Note is not like culturally Japanese. It doesn't need to be.
I think we've discussed how we tend to have a little less rage about whitewashing than a lot of people. We had a conversation about that. I forget how long ago that was, but we did have a conversation on this podcast about that.
Yeah, but like that said, I've also said that like the reason a lot of these adaptations turn out poorly is because like the people involved aren't aware of the source material. Like they don't know what's good about it and what people want and why people like it. So in terms of that, like the changes that they've made, while not inherently bad, are bad because they don't really know why the source material is good.
Yep.
So that's why the potato chip scene won't be in it, right? I mean, whether you think that's good or not, that's associated with the anime, and they're not aware of it enough to think that that's an important scene that needs to be in the movie.
Does Netflix have like a panel or something at Anime Expo? Do you know?
No, I don't think they do. I think they're going to be at Comic-Con.
Because I was gonna say, or I guess like, this isn't gonna be released by Comic-Con, isn't it?
No.
Yeah, at Comic-Con, what percentage of the questions do you think are going to be for their panel that is the potato chip scene in it?
It's gonna be like whenever they go, do you have any questions? Like everybody's gonna raise their hand and be like, oh, it's potato chip scene in, and then like no, and then everybody leaves.
Oh, see, no, yeah, they see, no, because the real way to direct that is you say that anybody any questions and everyone raise their hands, and then you're just like, except is the potato chip scene in it, and then everyone walks out. That's the more effective
slightly
way.
different version of that sketch.
Yeah, but that's the better way. I'm determined.
So, one thing, sort of a fun fact: the star of this movie, who plays Light, Nat Wolff, was one of the stars and I guess writers of the Naked Brothers Band, the Nickelodeon show, which I guess was about a band of brothers.
Who were naked.
Yeah, I don't think they were because they were young kids, but he was one of the main guys in that show. So that's sort of an interesting fact. And I feel like I was going to say something else, but
there you go.
You're gonna talk about how that's not a very good resume.
Oh no, what I was going to say was that yeah, kind of watching this trailer sort of makes me wonder if the filmmakers had the same attitude as that French guy who was going to direct Akira, who quite famously, to me at least, had some quotes from him that were like so insanely off base concerning not just Akira, but his opinions on all Japanese anime and media. That it was really mind-boggling how wrong he was. He said something weird like Japanese media doesn't ever have good characters. You guys probably remember this. Yeah, so it really...
I actually don't remember this. Can you actually tell me what he said?
I can't do it right now, but he certainly said almost verbatim that. Like, Japanese media, they don't focus on characters. They don't have good characters. So that's kind of why we're doing something different with this Akira movie, which, obviously...
He wanted to change the setting of Akira from Japan to New York and make it like about 9/11.
Oh, I remember that being a thing. Wasn't like Morgan Freeman supposed to be in it or something?
I don't know. It's not happening anymore, so good. But
Japanese media sucks. That's why I'm adapting it, because I have so little respect for it that I want to take it and make everyone who appreciates it feel a little bit worse about their lives.
It is like very strange. Like most of the time, whenever I think about the possibility, like like what would I do if I did an adaptation of something? I usually imagine that I would treat the thing very respectfully. There are certain things, like maybe if I got my hand on some of Clive Barker's works, that would probably change in my mind for the better. But like, it kind of seems like some of these guys, they just like don't realize that the thing is already good. So they're like, I need to change this. I need to make all these changes. So it's going to be better. But like,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't
know
why they get these guys who know nothing about the source material. Like you need some sort of awareness here, like that. And that's why like the Battle Angel Alita movie that James Cameron wanted to do, like could have been like a cool thing because like he wanted to do that movie. So he's presumably already a fan of it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wonder if the Cowboy Bebop movie would have been like that, and I wonder what the supposedly in the works TV show will be like.
Well, yeah, the movie might have been good because Keanu Reeves was a fan, but not the TV show.
So I think that's it for Death Note. Our next news item was about another movie, another comic book adaptation, which is the new Hellboy movie. And I guess, there's some bad feelings about this movie. Not that we discuss it here, but, just because Guillermo del Toro and Ron Perlman were trying to rally to get a third one made for a long time. They went around to several studios and no one was into it. And then shortly after the last time that they did that, they kind of officially gave up on it. Then a few weeks later, it's like, oh, they announced a new Hellboy movie directed by some other guy.
Sure, they were just waiting for them to stop.
Yeah, yeah, starring some other guy. So there was some bad vibes around that. But I guess that's kind of over, Can't feel bad forever. So this new Hellboy movie is called Hellboy Rise of the Blood Queen, which is a cool title. I would assume that it's based on probably a comic book storyline by the same name, I would guess. It's directed by a guy named Neil Marshall. I don't really know who that is. It's starring a guy named David Harbour, who was in Stranger Things. He was in the movie Black Mass. He seems to be a pretty good actor from what I've seen. And he certainly looks like he would be the right pick for Hellboy. So what Neil Marshall has said about this new Hellboy movie are a couple things that sort of tie into what's going on with comic book movies in general right now, which is that the movie is going to be R-rated, and obviously he's very happy about that because he's not going to be constrained anymore. And he says that they're going to use CGI sparingly as possible, which whatever you want to say about Guillermo del Toro, he was sort of both a fan of CGI and not a fan of CGI. He's sort of known for his practical effects uses in several scenes in Hellboy 2, but then the movie also did have a fair amount of CGI in it. So it is kind of funny to hear him say, like, oh, we're going to use CGI sparingly, because, like, Del Toro kind of already was doing that. Like, there are certainly certain aspects of the movies where, another filmmaker would have used CGI. He didn't. But it's good to hear him say that, I guess. It sort of brings to mind a certain feeling that this movie might have. You kind of tend to wonder, maybe it won't be a large-scale movie. Maybe it'll be smaller scale. And from what I have read of the Hellboy comic, some of that did seem to be kind of on a smaller scale. Sometimes he would just be kind of alone by himself doing something in some European place. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. What are your guys' thoughts on all this?
The thing about, like, whenever they say, like, oh, like, I got that R rating, like, you can do a lot on PG-13, and, like, a lot of times the directors do it a lot, but, just people in general, it's like what happened with Deadpool, where people are like, you can't make a Deadpool movie unless it's R. It's like, no, if you've read Deadpool comics, you can actually definitely do that. A lot of his best runs were pretty PG-13 in nature. Like, the original comic wasn't too violent, and freaking Cable and Deadpool also wasn't that violent. So, like, you can definitely, and they definitely didn't have that much cursing. So you don't need that stuff. You can just adapt the work pretty much, especially, I mean, I haven't read the Hellboy comic, but from my understanding, it's not that violent. You could get away with doing PG-13. So it's just, to me, it's always kind of dumb when this issue's brought up, because it's like, if you write it well, you really don't need it to be R most of the time. You don't need that violence and stuff in order to make it good. But at the same time, if Del Toro's the one who's Del Toro Quest is the guy who's directing it, you want it to kind of be how he wants it to be, so that he can get his best vision. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely.
Well, but he's not directing it anymore, though.
Oh, he's not?
No, it's this new guy. Yeah, like what I was explaining in the beginning was that Del Toro really wanted to make a Hellboy 3. And him and Ron Perlman did, but they just weren't able to. Studios didn't want it. Okay. Then, like, right after they made, like, a big push to get Hellboy 3 made. They went to, like, a bunch of meetings, and then, like, they failed. And then, like, a few weeks later, this new movie was announced. So what I was saying in the beginning was that it was kind of depressing to hear that, which would probably have several people sort of have a grudge about this movie from the start. But, like, I'm not going to ruminate over it for that long. That's what I was saying before.
Okay, sorry, I missed that part. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, yeah, my point still stands, though. You can definitely make good adaptations without them being R, but if you want, the director should probably still get mostly what they want in terms of, the ability to create their vision so that they can get that best vision.
You're not advocating for every movie to be R, you're just advocating for every movie to have freedom.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, like in terms of a movie being R, like, I feel like it's generally not necessary. Like, R usually, it like allows them to replicate, like, the style of the source material, but it's very rarely ever, like, thematically necessary. Like, I feel like most things can be adapted pretty well without an R rating. Like, I think, like, a recent example of something that, like, couldn't is like the Ghost of Shell movie. Like, I feel like that would definitely need to have been R rated for them to adapt the source material well, and it wasn't, and then it sucked. But like in terms of like Logan and Deadpool, now that they've done so well that like an R rating has kind of become like accepted in terms of like comic book related things. I feel like that does open up more freedom and like more avenues to be able to more accurately like replicate the style of the original comic. But the problem that I'm seeing here is that like at this point it kind of seems like a bandwagony thing. It's like, oh, now we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
So like let's just do it because we can, because it almost seems like they're sort of like falling back on the R rating as a reason to why the movie is going to be good rather than making the movie good and just making it R rated. Like, and it almost seems like oh, if the movie turns out to suck, then it'll be like, well, but it was R rated, so it's obviously like more mature and stuff. You can't say it sucks. Like that's just kind of how it seems to me, because they're just like, oh yeah, we're really gonna replicate the comic here, and like that doesn't seem necessary. Like an R rating should not, like, it really shouldn't be like news. It should be like it is or it isn't, like depending on however you want to make the movie.
Yeah, personally, I hope that maybe the movie will resemble Mike Mignola's art a little bit, because he did some really great art. I really love his style, even though I was not a big reader of the comics. So I would like to see a movie that sort of is evocative of that style with all the shadows. So,
yeah, I mean, I think we just have to like see more of this, see how good of an adaptation.
Yeah, it comes out I think next year. Yep, Hellboy: Rise of the Blood Queen. So that's actually kind of all the topics that we had for today. They're just not a big news week, like I said. So what we're going to do now is sort of go through what we talked about last week, and just sort of go through it, because there were several interesting topics. The first topic from last week was about Daniel Day-Lewis's retirement from acting. And I feel like, if you want to summarize that, there's not going to be much to say. We somehow talked about it for like 10 minutes last week.
What there is to say is the obvious joke.
Yeah. What was that?
Well, since Daniel Day-Lewis is such a method actor, then this is just one of his many roles where you're going to play a retired actor in his next movie.
Right, and then that remains to be seen. I think I was saying that I could definitely believe that this will be permanent. Even though, the stigma tends to be, when a big person retires, it's not going to be permanent, because the ones people like to quote are Hayao Miyazaki and Steven Soderbergh, both attempted to retire and failed. Miyazaki did several times.
I just like the concept of failing to retire. It's just like, I tried to retire, but I just was not able to. I wasn't able to step up to the plate, guys. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to continue working.
I was not
seeing my movies.
The retirement agency did not accept my application to retire. I have to remain at work. But yeah, I could believe it. And the next movie he's doing is going to be with Paul Thomas Anderson, so I'm really looking forward to that. We don't know what type of Paul Thomas Anderson movie that's going to be. Could be something completely new. But I'm pretty hyped already.
Like the non-joke element to that is that Paul Thomas Anderson is like one of the best directors to go out with, especially since he was in There Will Be Blood, which is like famously known as like one of the best movies of all time. So yeah, like another collaboration between the two would be great.
Yeah, and the next topic we had after that was a really interesting one about the new Han Solo Star Wars movie, and it was especially interesting because not only did the directors leave, are the directors gone from the film, I guess I would say, but they were fired, and it's pretty much confirmed that they were just fired. With these two guys, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, they did the Lego Movie, they did Clyde with a Chance of Meatballs, and for whatever reason, Disney decided that they didn't want them anymore. Clearly, Disney hired them because of their ability to make sort of these comedy movies with, I don't know, a little more depth to them or whatever. At least that's what the Lego Movie was. But whether they were too funny for Disney, we don't really know. All we know, is that like supposedly the way they ran the set really clashed with Kathleen Kennedy, who sort of owns Star Wars under Disney now.
Yeah, I mean, I heard multiple things about this actually. Like, I heard for one that they were making Han Solo too like like what's a good word? Not like childish, but like too playful, I guess.
Hmm.
And I think this was actually brought up by the actor himself. I forgot his name.
Oh, yeah. His name is, I think, Alden Ehrenreich.
Yeah, I think he mentioned this.
The important thing is his name is not Harrison Ford. But continue.
Sure. I think he mentioned this, and it got to the higher ups, and then they're like, oh, this isn't Han Solo. He's got to be like more roguish or whatever. So I think that was part of the reason why they were let go. And another thing is also that I heard that apparently the production of the movie was taking too long. Like they were taking too long during scenes, like the film specific scenes.
Right.
Oh yeah, and also that they were letting actors improvise too much. Those are,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
main-
like that I could totally believe because having directed like 21 Jump Street, both of those movies, obviously, a lot of modern day comedies have a lot of improv in them. So yeah, I could definitely believe that. Whether this is the right choice, we don't really know. I also heard that Alden Ehrenreich is like taking acting lessons now.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I
I
mean, there
think
was
that was
that, but I mean, I heard that apparently it wasn't. It's not uncommon for.
Yeah, I think someone said it's not uncommon, but it is uncommon this late in production.
Yeah, yeah. So.
Hey guys,
I
how
don't
the
know,
hell
it's
do
a-
I act?
It's like the movie's about to be released in like 2 days.
It's like
Oh,
the
yeah,
accent.
I knew I forgot something.
Yeah, it's like the people were filming just him in his trailer the whole time. It's like, why weren't we supposed to start filming? This is the movie.
But yeah, it's,
Yeah.
a lot of unfortunate circumstances surrounding this movie.
Yeah, so now they've replaced these two guys with Ron Howard. It was sort of a kind of a hit and miss director on his own. And he'll probably just do whatever Disney wants, finish the movie up. It's already far into filming, which is like part of why the situation is really interesting. So he'll probably just finish it up, and we'll hope for good things. Obviously, both of you and probably many other people are sort of down on this movie purely because it's a Han Solo movie without Harrison Ford.
No, I'm down on it because it's a Star Wars movie.
Right. Okay. But yeah, Rogue One was good, so we'll see.
No, what?
Did you see it?
No.
Well, it was good. Anyway, next thing we talked about last week, we did have William talk a little bit about Pokemon Go, but unfortunately he's not here and we don't really play that game. So there's not much you can say about that.
We don't have the expertise to properly explain.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I just know that there was like some kind of update. I don't really know what it does. But...
Yeah, there's raid battles. William explained it pretty well last week. He talked about how he's like a big badass now who took over several gyms because all the gyms were reset. So that's cool. And then we had a really actually first we also talked about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which obviously that was kind of your guys' topic. Do you guys have anything to repeat from that topic from last week?
Well, we talked about like how functions are funny, like a funny statement.
Yeah, we joked about Conjunction Junction. Well, I did, and then you said, "Oh, everybody's making that joke."
But, well, everybody's making like every possible function joke.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with Combo Fiend, where he stated that characters are just functions, which kind of, speaks to being really off base with his own community, honestly. Yeah, it's like he came from it. So it's like I feel like he knows that that's a BS PR move, but that he's saying it because he has to think of something. He can't be like, yeah, guys, yeah, the game kind of sucks. We're sorry.
Well, yeah, he has to say something, and like but he's not a PR guy. He's a high level fighting game player. So he's thinking as a high level player, and then he's like, oh, okay, what can I say? Like if they got rid of my favorite character, what would kind of like fix that for me? If they put another character that was just like it, right? So like, bam, there you go, function. Except like, and like. That would sort of fly like a little bit, and if it was like a more obscure game that was like more of like a fighting game, game
like one
maybe
that
like
had original characters.
Yeah, like the Blaze Blue or something like that, or like Guilty Gear. They'd be like, okay, yeah, we can replace some of these guys, and like not too many people would get pissed. But if it's Marvel versus Capcom, like the whole point of that game, first and foremost, is to appeal to a casual audience, which is shown by the fact that they released a story demo, as in. Not a demo where you can fight your friends or a demo where you can go into training mode, but a demo where you play through the story mode and that's it. They're specifically trying to cater to casuals, and they're trying to like give the game like a higher level of popularity compared to Street Fighter V. They're trying to say, hey, we have one player content in this game, and it's not just a competitive fighter. So a statement like that not only alienates competitive players who truly care about the characters, and there are many that do, but it alienates literally every single casual fan who was playing it just because they want to play as like Wolverine or whatever.
Yeah, there's no X-Men, right?
No, not at the moment. A lot of people suspect that they could be DLC, but at the moment there's no X-Men, there's no Fantastic Four. That's all been like kind of like pushed away by Marvel.
Yeah. Damn you, Hollywood. Okay, so anything else to say about Marvel?
Game looks like shit.
Bad. Like, hopefully it will look less bad soon. They said that they are updating the graphics, but currently it looks very bad. They released some screenshots of an updated version that looks slightly better, but it's still
really?
not great. I mean, it's really a thing where like yeah, it looks like they're facing the lighting, which is fine. That goes a long way to make the game look better. But a big problem with the game is the fact that the models look horrible. So like no amount of lighting will fix that. Like it just like you need to make the actual characters themselves look better. And I don't know if they're going to go back and do that, nor if they have the time to go back and do that. But the game is set to be released in about 2 months now.
That's insane how quickly the game feels like it's coming out.
Well, yeah, like they announced it like less than a year ago. And it's literally about to come out. Like it was way too fast. Like they clearly rushed this into production. They're just like, here, get it out and make some money.
Well, it's probably because Street Fighter V isn't doing well, so they're like, get next game, quick, get it out, guys.
That's really a big part of it, and it's also probably because Marvel doesn't care to have a good game; they just want a game out with their characters. So like those things put together are probably like a big reason for the problem. Because yeah, like a thing that they're doing with this game, like I said, is that they're really trying to push the one-player content, which is something that like really has backfired so far. Because not only due to Combo Fiend's statement, but the story demo is really shitty. Like, you fight like annoying, easy opponents. You can't really pick your character. You can't like stop and practice. You back learn anything, and
the story sucks.
So, like, yeah, like and the story sucks. So like as a fighting game player, there's like really nothing there for you. And if you're like, oh, I'm a casual fan who just wants to play whoever, like it still sucks because you like if it's a fighting game, you still want to like play who you want or like learn a character or do something. Like you don't want to just see the story. Like you know that there's a story mode at the end in the actual game, so you don't need a demo with a story mode. It doesn't inform you in any way. So like literally no one likes the fact that there's a story mode demo. We want like an actual fighting demo. But you have to go to E3 for that. You can't just play it.
So if this game bombs, do you think Capcom is going to blame themselves or blame us?
Well, they'll definitely blame us.
Yeah.
Like Capcom will always do whatever is the stupidest possible thing, and like maybe they'll change at some point.
Oh,
but yeah.
Got those important phones.
It's like that's like the freaking red phone, man. You better pick that up.
Two Kings.
That was an esoteric reference.
Yeah, like it's actually like been pretty astounding how Capcom has lately, since the release of Street Fighter V, made every possible wrong move that they could. Like at every moment, they've always done the worst thing that they could have done about that, right? Like no function nonsense. Release like a decent demo. Right, like they always find a way. Because like when the demo was announced, people were like, "Oh, awesome! We get to play a demo of this game. We get to try it out." But like, you really don't get to try it out because it's only a story mode demo. So it's like every time something sounds good, it's not. So I do imagine they would blame their fans. I don't expect anything good to come out of them anytime soon.
All right, so that's the Capcom hate hour, and we had more of that last week. So it's a shame we didn't get to put it up.
Yeah, but I don't feel like we need to go into the exact details of why everything is bad. I think most people can.
You get it. So the last thing we talked about last week, which was something that I think all of us are very sad that it was lost, because it was a long conversation. We covered a lot of different things in it. it was a conversation that Grant came up with about canceled video games. And I guess you can go into a little bit about why you started talking about that, and maybe try to summarize some of the stuff that we talked about.
So basically, yes. So we talked about canceled video games that we kind of cared about,
or games that turned out much different from
yeah. So the reason why I came up with the conversation is because I had been looking at footage for Prey 2, which, you know, I'm talking about the original version of it, the one that was actually supposed to be a sequel to the Prey for 360, not the one we got, which was just kind of an unrelated title with the Prey name on it. And I was just, you know, I found myself very sad because I haven't played the new Prey. I own it, so I should, but I gotta, you know, make space on my PS4, so I want to beat some games first before I get to it. But, you know, the new Prey's getting a positive reception, and it looks cool. I've seen it played. It looks like a fun game. But Prey 2 looked like it could have been one of the greatest games ever made. Like, it could have been, like, literally just, like, that good. Like, everything about it looked right. The setting was great. The graphics were great. And it was, you know, it was continuing this, like, cool setup that they seem to be doing with the Prey series, where they're going to establish a big, gigantic universe about it. And that would have been cool. But, you know, it was canceled due to many, you know, very stupid things. Bethesda, in short, Bethesda wanted, I forget the name of the company that was developing it, but
I think it was like Titus Interactive or something.
Is it?
I think
that
was that. Maybe that was maybe that was the Superman 64 people.
Yeah, that's the Superman 64.
Yeah, that was another one of the games that we.
I think it was like Playism or something. Or the developers, something like along those lines. But Bethesda wanted to basically own them. Like, they wanted to have full control over the future of the Prey franchise, and the company didn't want to do that. They wanted to have their own freedom. So, despite the fact that the company was regularly releasing updates on the gameplay, and, you know, they were hitting milestones, what Bethesda started doing is they started creating unrealistic milestones so that they can then say that the project isn't doing well, to try to put pressure on them to sell to Bethesda. And it didn't work, and eventually they canceled it because, quote-unquote, Bethesda said that it wasn't meeting their quality standards. So, you know, definitely it was a bunch of bullshit. It was a bunch of bullshit. What?
No, that was just very funny how it was like, you could have just said bull, but then you decided to add the shit in at the last second.
Because that's what it was. Oh, sorry, it was Human Head Studios was the developers for Prey 2. And yeah, so it was just a real shame. And we talked about, I'm trying to think. We also talked about Superman 64 because there was actually a PlayStation version that Titus Interactive developed that never saw an official release because they lost the rights to the Superman character like almost immediately before release date happened. So they had a finished game basically, and they couldn't release it. And what's weird about that is that the only review it got was from PlayStation Magazine, and it got a 9 out of 10. So obviously anyone who knows Superman 64 knows one of the worst games ever made. Very interesting that the PlayStation port apparently made the game like significantly better. So, you know, again, a shame that we missed it. Those are, I believe, the ones I talked about. I'm trying to think of ones that you guys talked about.
Yeah, no, I talked about a couple games. One of them was Shadows of the Damned, the Suda 51 game, which did come out. We talked about how it wasn't really a Suda 51 game because he didn't really direct it. And we talked about how
it was a Suda 51 trip.
Says on the box, yeah. We talked about how originally that was a game called Kuriyami when he was planning it, which was sort of going to be this more psychological survival horror type game where you went around in this Victorian mansion with all these kind of cool Victorian looking characters, and it was supposed to be very atmospheric, probably very different from the sort of grindhousey tone that we ended up getting. And I don't hate Shadows of the Damned, but I think Kuriyami, probably would have been much better. It would have been really nice to see Suda return to a more serious game after No More Heroes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a shame that we didn't get that. There are some remnants. I actually didn't mention this last week, where I think that the remnants of the Kuriyami idea that did get into Shadows of the Damned were some of the sections where you sort of have to keep yourself in the light. And you have to keep this kind of torch lit as you go around. I think that was a gameplay mechanic that was sort of planned for Kuriyami. Probably a gameplay mechanic that's been used in other games as well. But yeah, that was one of the things I talked about. And I kind of tried to get into Bioshock Infinite, but I kind of decided against it because there was like a lot to talk about there. And I mentioned how, the development of that game was really troubled. They planned a whole multiplayer, and they developed that a lot, and then they dropped it, which probably cut into the development of the single player content. And of course, I mentioned how if you have not seen the original footage that they showed for Bioshock Infinite, it looked to be a game on a much larger scale than what we ended up getting. You should really watch that footage if you haven't. They showed like a 10-minute sort of, I guess they call them vertical slices, demo of the game, and it looked really good, and it was not too similar to what we ended up getting. Last game I talked about was you say something?
Well, I was just saying that it looked a lot more like free roaming kind of thing.
Yeah, you could fall from a huge height and actually see clouds, and you would fall through clouds. And that was it. It just looked really cool.
And the sky railings were like actual transportation between areas, as opposed to just kind of being like a option in combat, as it kind of was in the main game.
And then, the last game I mentioned was this NES game that I bring up from time to time called Bioforce Ape, which was a game that was developed pretty far into its development, and it was actually featured in a preview in Nintendo Power, but it did not end up getting released. And I just really like what I've seen and played of this game, because I did download a ROM of it at some point after what did exist of the game was found and uploaded online. It was just one of these sort of later NES games that had these really quick and fun animations, and I just it was really creative for what it was. I think there was an enemy in that game that was basically it was like a crocodile, and the crocodile is standing and facing up, and the crocodile's mouth is open, and then there's a man's torso that comes out of the mouth, and then that's the guy that actually fights you. And there was a bunch of weird stuff like that. So just for what it's worth, it seemed like it would have been probably a very well-regarded NES game if it had been released, and it was one that was a shame that it wasn't.
Oh, I also wanted to mention, so it was actually with the Superman situation, it was Titus actually they allowed one of their underling companies, Black Sky Studios, I believe it was, and they kind of were like, hey, you can develop it, as opposed to them developing it in-house like they did.
That was why it was good.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah.
Yeah, Johnny, did you talk about any games?
I thought you did, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a few, like the main games that I sort of wanted to talk about, because I normally don't follow games too much before they come out. I usually whenever I start to get into a game, it's usually because it's sort of guaranteed. It's either about to be released, or it's a sequel or something. Something that pretty far down the road, that it's most likely not going to get canceled or change too much. But a few that came to mind in terms of this topic are for one, Banjo 3, right? I think is a great game that we never got, because we got Nuts and Bolts, which is not exactly a Banjo style game. So I feel that's pretty unfortunate, especially when you consider the just kind of the difference between Banjo Tooie to Kazooie. Unlike most people, I think that Banjo Tooie is a better game than Kazooie, and I feel that the changes that they made are all really great, and they make for a much bigger and more fun game. And I'd be very interested to see what they would do with a third game, in that style. another similar game would be like the Paper Mario series, right? Because we got like Paper Mario's 1 and 2, like Thousand Year Door. And then after that, they just kind of started doing their own thing. Like Super Paper Mario, I never played. It's supposed to be good,
Yeah.
but I don't know much about it.
I liked it.
But yeah, a lot of people liked it. But I wanted more of like an RPG style Paper Mario because I really liked the way the game played, and the fact that you had partner characters and like the style of the adventure. But since then we've only gotten like Sticker Star and Color Splash and like all these weird like gimmicky games that sort of like Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts don't really follow the style of the original and what made it good. You know, like I would just like, hey, here's another adventure of the same style but with new stuff. Like to me, that's fine.
Yeah, the closest thing we got to another Paper Mario game was the was the Mario and Luigi game that Paper Mario guest starred in.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, that's probably closer to Paper Mario than Sticker Star and the other one, Color Splash. So that kind of sucks. Like it's really weird because Nintendo has this thing where they hate to repeat games. Like they hate to repeat like the style of certain games, but like a lot of their innovations aren't necessarily good. Like innovate if you got a good idea, but don't innovate if there's nothing there. You know, like it's not like we have that many Paper Mario games in existence. Like you can stand to make a third one. You know, and like the last one on my list would probably be like Golden Sun Dark Dawn, because I really like the first two Golden Sun games. They're some of my favorite Game Boy Advance games. But Dark Dawn just felt like really dull and like kind of repetitive, and I never even really finished the game. So like that kind of sucks because I like the other games a lot. So like I don't really know what happened there, but that like they literally they rebooted this franchise after like 10 years, released a game, and then nobody cared about it. And even though the game ends on a sequel hook, it's most likely not getting a sequel. And like there's been no announcements for a sequel, and I don't think anyone cares.
Well, that's exactly like with the original Prey, because it literally ends with the message "Prey will continue," and Prey is not going to continue. So
yeah, but well, I mean, but like then this isn't really a case of them screwing over the studio. It's just a case of the fact that for some reason this Golden Sun game was not very well designed, and nobody gave a shit, and then it just isn't gonna get another one. No one cared.
Oh yeah, and it was Blue Sky Software was the company developing the PlayStation version of Superman 64.
Ugh, so many company names. Jeez.
I kept screwing it up because I was doing Black Sky Studios and all that stuff, but yeah, it's Blue Sky Software.
Yeah, the company that made Bioforce Ape is called Seta, which is pretty damn confusing. It sounds like Sega. Anyway, I think that we summed up pretty well everything that we talked about last week. It was a good episode, and I think I should say that this one was also good. I think we can agree on that.
You and your hubris.
Yeah. Well, no, it was all of us that did, and we wish William was here to contribute as well. But I think that's all we have for this week. So yeah, thanks for listening, everybody. And what?
Wait, did we? I forget if we explained that why you're even leading. We never did we?
Did we? I mean, we kind of said that I led last week because of your kind of computer problems, and then I guess this week just because last week got effed up.
Did we? All right, whatever. Hey, have a nice day, guys.